where we'll quickly try to learn about the concept of the fertilizer subsidy which is applied in our country and how, even when it comes to fertilizer subsidy, we are actually facing a huge import dependency. So first and foremost, what does the article says? The article says that with the Kharif season which is going to begin from the month end, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on the Fertilizers, which is headed by the Trinamool Congress Member of Parliament, has warned of an acute shortage of an essential fertilizers. So citing the ongoing geopolitical tensions which is prevailing in the West Asia and the consequent pressure on the international shipping routes, the panel has underlined the need for a proactive and forward-looking strategy to actually kind of safeguard India's fertilizer supply chain. First and foremost, let's try to understand Kharif crop क्या होता है. Kharif crops are those crops which are actually sown in June, July just with the onset of the monsoon and harvested in the month of September and October. So we can, as we are living in our country, we know that in this time period between these months there exists warm and humid climate where the average temperature basically ranges between 25 to 35 degrees Celsius. Obviously, the farmers who are growing these Kharif crops, they are overtly dependent on monsoon. So basically, these Kharif crops, they require moderate to heavy rainfall of between 50 to 200 centimeter. And thus the crops which are grown are also water intensive crops, where to actually grow these crops, kind of waterlogged conditions are often required. And thus these Kharif crops, they thrive in the tropical monsoon climates and are grown in across the soil varieties which are available in our country. Black soil, red laterite soil, loamy soil, alluvial soil which is actually found on the banks of the various river systems. Coming to the major Kharif crops and what is India's rank and the largest producing states. So very important table from the perspective of the prelims examination. For example, recently we have actually become the largest rice producing and exporting country in the world, and which state has the largest production? West Bengal. When it comes to bajra or pearl millet, we are actually again the top producing country. The state which produces the highest amount of pearl millet is Rajasthan. In the case of finger millet or ragi, it is Karnataka. In the case of cotton, Gujarat. In the case of jute, it is West Bengal. In the case of groundnuts, we are basically second in the terms of production, and the state with the highest production is Gujarat. Same goes with tea, and the state which actually produces the highest amount of tea is Assam, followed by West Bengal and Tamil Nadu. And ultimately to soya bean, we are ranked 5th, and the state which produces the highest amount of soya bean is 5th. Which are the kind of the Kharif crops which are actually covered in your MSP also, minimum support price also. So for example, your rice, jowar, bajra, maize, tur, arhar, moong and urad, groundnut, soya bean, sesame, sunflower, as well as cotton. So when it comes to the fertilizer subsidy which is actually provided for the various kind of Kharifs and Rabi crops, keep this in mind that the government basically implements the nutrient based subsidy scheme, where government basically provides two kind of the subsidies which are actually given on the basis of nutrients. So government is saying that, okay, do you want to actually increase your crop productivity? You say yes. Government is saying we are going to provide you diammonium phosphate and muriate of potash. But for that, you are actually required, the people who are actually importing these fertilizers and the people who are manufacturing it also, they actually are required to maintain a healthy N is to P is to K ratio of 4 is to 2 is to 1. The more you deviate from this ratio, the lesser subsidy will be given by the government, and thus does government directly control the subsidy of these fertilizers to the farmer? No. The only fertilizer for which the government actually directly intervenes is urea, right? The only controlled fertilizer. But here, because the government is actually kind of indirectly subsidizing the importers, the manufacturers of the subsidy, thus the idea is to actually kind of get as closer to this healthy ratio as well, and this is called as informal control design. Urea, the only controlled fertilizer in our country for which the government actually decides a statutory price, which is the most produced, used and imported fertilizer. How the subsidy for urea is calculated? So the cost of production is actually divided by the cost of import minus actual price which is paid by the farmer, right? Remember, the government has also introduced 100% neem coated urea to actually kind of disincentivize the farmer to use a lot of fertilizer, and that is mandatory for all the domestic producers as well. Now let's have a quick look at the data which has been provided to us by the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Fertilizers, according to which the domestic production of urea in this year financial cycle is estimated to be 306 lakh metric ton versus we are still going to import 85 lakh metric ton of fertilizer. The government of India is saying that okay, we have actually kind of incentivized the importers, or more importantly the manufacturers, and thus look at the import share of urea, which was 28.5% in 2021, but it has significantly declined to 15% in 2025. However, for this 85 lakh metric ton which we are going to procure, the government is going to incur a subsidized cost of 32,000 crore, and for the domestic manufacturers also, because urea is subsidized to the farmers, the government incurs a cost of 91,000 crore. Keep this in mind that for this diammonium phosphate, muriate of potash, we are actually import dependent for 90% of the rock phosphate, 100% for potash, and we have very limited availability of sulfur, which is obviously going to be further exacerbated because of the geopolitical disruptions, global commodity price volatility, and foreign exchange risks as well. So the government has also taken some steps where government is actually trying to incentivize the farmers to move towards organic farming, to actually use less amount of fertilizers and pesticides under your Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana. The government is also actually giving the farmers soil health card, so doing kind of soil analysis, providing them an exact card that this is the kind of the N is to P is to K ratio which you shall adhere to, which is good for your crop. So do not actually extensively utilize urea. Third, neem coated urea and nano urea, which actually kind of decline the overall uses of area by actually increasing the productivity itself. So keep these things in your mind, keep the datas in your mind, important statements can be made from that, and we move forward to the next news.